Yo, 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 what up, what up, what up? It's your girl V-Henny, man. You already know the vibes. Welcome to the Artistry, where we talk shit about music, entertainment, and the everyday struggles. And you know how we do, man. We always have a dope guest in the building. We have author, music mogul, entrepreneur, the guy himself. We got J Hatch in the building. Yeah, you welcome. You welcome, man. You know, welcome to my humble home.
Appreciate it. Love the space, man. Looks amazing.
Thank you. I will say I'm glad that we officially met. Before we dive into anything, I usually always do a toast. I know you have, your vice. You understand? Yeah, I got some sparkly water. You understand? I want to say congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Everything you've overcame. Super inspiring, and despite it all, you kept pushing. So thank you for allowing everybody to shine the way they're shining. You know. So let's make it happen. You understand? Like this, that sparkly water. Yeah. But
back in the day, that would have been vodka.
I mean, if not, it would have been Henny. You know? Sure. Nah, but definitely wanted to tap in and be like, yo, my first experience learning of who you are, I remember, I think it was like 2017, 2018, and I went to a friend of mine. He's a producer, and he was like, you have to go to this showcase. It's like, but it's just producers. Right. And I was like, okay, what is it? And he was like, our standards. And I was just like, oh, okay, like, because I do events. Right. So I was like, let me pull up, see how it is. And I remember going to the venue. It was in Manhattan. And the outcome in itself was super dope. I'm like, nah, this is a showcase, but with producers. Right. Like, and the energy was insane. Seeing that how you went from iStandard, you have also other brands, you have your creative space events, your co-founder for Made by Us music and R&B playlists, right? But just going back to iStandards, I want to know, like, I like to take it back. So I want to know, how did you start, or what got you in music per se, or like in the industry, because you've been in this industry for a minute. And I learned something new with you as well. I learned that you was a dancer as well. So like, I want to know, so I want to definitely get into your story and learn, like, before we get into iStanders, all of this, you're like, who was J Hatch before all of this?
All right, cool. I used to be an artist long time.
Okay.
I was a rapper trying to get my bars out there pre internet, you know what I'm saying? This was like actually beeper time. We weren't even like cellular phone time yet.
Wow.
But for the most part, I did start off as a dancer. I actually used to dance for a freestyle artist named Suave.
Okay.
Crying Over You was a big song of his. If anybody that's
yes.
into freestyle.
I'm Puerto Rican, I have to.
Absolutely. And then, I just kind of fell in love with just being in the spotlight, doing that. I used to do like lip sync contests and stuff back in high school. And two of the dudes that used to dance with Suave, they approached me and they were like, hey, like, we see what you're doing. We love you, for you to join us. We're doing bigger shows, festivals, concerts.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, cool. Let's do it. You know what I'm saying? So I did some spot dates, got involved, and then we started making music as a trio, as a rap group. Things happened, obviously, and that didn't work out with all three of us, and I started taking it more seriously myself.
Okay.
Met a producer by the name of Drawzilla.
Okay.
Good friend of mine. He inspired me to start doing my own thing as an artist. You know what I'm saying? So we actually had a deal, a single deal with Columbia Records.
Okay.
Something I didn't want to do because as a group, it didn't really fit like what I felt like I wanted to do. They wanted to be some like Hicks from the Woods, like some real like gimmicky shit, and I really wasn't down with it. So I said, how do you come back from that if it doesn't work?
Right.
So I started doing my own thing, work with Drawzilla. Then I was signed to Slick Rick's DJ, Vance Wright.
Okay.
Slick Rick's DJ at a front row seat to like people like Sadat X, Grand Poobah, P Rock, CL Smooth, Busta Rhymes. I mean, it was like
the legends, like
front row seats. Like Greg Nice was like in every session with me.
That's dope.
Nice and Smooth. And then it got to the point where Vance kind of went through something, midlife crisis, I think, or something at the time. Show up at the studio one day, and all of a sudden there's a pink slip notice on the door saying closed till further notice.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I go to the studio, and I'm like, okay, like I'm working 3 jobs. I'm in the studio every night. I'm sleeping on the couch. I'm doing the same thing every day. Run to the payphone. I don't know if y'all remember payphones back in the day.
What is that?
Exactly.
No, I just
went to the payphone, tried contacting them. I couldn't contact them for almost 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So I had no real closure on like this rap career of mine. So I went to go work for Aeropostale Clothing.
Okay.
And I got promoted like 8 times. I actually got, over 8 years, got promoted through every rank you could possibly touch.
Okay.
Keep that story short, but I ended up like not really loving what I did after a certain period of time.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So Drawzilla kept saying like, yo, Hatch, like, you're doing this music thing still, kind of, why don't you come back?
Right.
So luckily I made a decision. I left my job 22 years ago.
Okay.
To pursue this music thing. I'm only 17, so I don't really know how that really works. But basically what I did was I just kind of focused on me as a creative, but try to find different ways to, provide services, provide solutions to problems that a lot of artists would have. And I had a dope artist. We were doing shows, but it was never organized.
Gotcha.
Sound was horrible.
Okay.
They were going like, nobody knew when they were going on. I'm sure doing the showcase thing, you know how that can go.
Right.
So ended up just started doing showcases. We had something called Faces in the Crowd.
Yes, I remember that.
We ended up helping Chrisette Michelle get a deal with Island Def Jam. And then somebody at the show who had an artist in the show, super professional.
Okay.
He was like, you ever think about doing this for producers? And I was like, all right, cool. You know what I'm saying? But how would that work? I don't want it to be like a beat battle or just some sort of entertainment thing. I want it to be like educational, more about how to prepare these creatives to get better in their field and also how to present music to the people they're trying to get it to. So we started iStandard. We ran for like 16 years. We did over 100 events a year for most of the time.
You guys were moving.
36 markets, 100 events a year, South by Southwest, A3C. And then eventually, people just have creative differences and they start to go different ways.
Let me ask you this, because I know you're big on, and I feel like as an entrepreneur, you should be big on educating yourself. So how did you manage to educate yourself and continue to be, I guess, like updated with the times?
Yeah. Well, I went through it. I was there before internet. I was
there
when the internet started going. And I'm still here for whatever's next. You know what I mean? So I was able to apply everything I learned at Arrow. Where I was managing all these big stores, all these people. So organizationally, planning, prepping, building, relationships in general, how to communicate properly with people, professionalism, just the whole organizational side of it. And I applied that to what I wanted to do. Now, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Okay. I had Drawzilla and I had an artist that I was working with. And when you jump in the game, you're a little naive to just kind of figure out, okay, like I got 2 talented people I'm working with, so it should be pretty easy, right?
Right.
Nah, it's not at all. So I had to learn about the newer industry because I took an 8-year break.
Okay. Wow.
I went from 8 years of when they were making music on like 2-inch reels to everything's digital now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I just started to learn, apply it, and just start to really kind of figure out what I was going to do and how I was going to make my mark.
How long within the process, the startup process, did it take you to really be like, okay, this is what I want to do, to realize what is it that you want to do, since you didn't know?
I knew what I wanted to do when I was 18 as far as music. But in terms of like getting back into it, it took me a good year or two to understand like how to build the foundation that I needed to get to be successful and create longevity. Okay. And that's one of the most important things. I think people don't realize, like, people see us doing showcases. Right. They see us doing events. They think we're making a whole ton of money. So now all of a sudden you got 40 other people that doing these events, and they're not doing them the same way you're doing them or the same reasons you're doing them. Right, right. So that, creates, a pollution in the environment of that space. I'm sure you understand that as well.
No, I definitely do. And, it's funny. That's one of the questions I was going to get into because, like, again, you got to see you've been in this game for a minute, so you was able to see the foundation, you was the process, the changes, got to go through the process of everything all, right? So with that being said, like, working with different creators, especially nowadays, like, compared to in the past, a lot of them was putting in that footwork. Now I feel like artists or creatives are in a place of somewhat, and it's not all, but like that sense of entitlement. Like, again, you mentioned like they think you're automatically making the money, and I get it, you have your scammers and stuff like that, right? But you're here to educate, you're here to provide the service, and not only, it's not only a game for you, it's a game for everyone in the team and the artist. So it's like, again, like, I want to know your thought process on that, because you dealt with it in the producer, and you're now also dealing with it, I'm sure, with artists as well. So, but you with both. So it's like, what's your thought process of the fact of like looking at the times, how people were willing to put in the footwork and they really didn't have so much of that entitlement compared to what it is now. I feel like now it's really bad.
Yeah, because everything got visual.
Okay.
You know, so I think like it's easy to be a fraud when you can provide visuals that show people things they don't know are real or not. You know
Okay.
And so when people see money, they see cars, they see girls, they see mansions, whatever the case may be. People look at that and go, "Oh, either it's easy to get to,
Okay.
right? Or B, well, these guys are getting there, I can get there." You know what I'm saying? So it gives you that false sense of like what it takes to actually make it happen.
Right.
So I think like when things started to go visual, people started to think differently.
Okay.
Right? And then back in the day, like you might have had 5 MCs on the same block in Brooklyn, but they all sounded different. They all had their own identity. They all different. You know, it was a different process back then too, because as a producer, you had to spend a lot of money to be a producer.
Okay.
Nowadays, you can do everything on your phone. You could record yourself.
Okay.
You can make a beat or download a beat. You can shoot a video. You could upload it to YouTube. You could put it on TuneCore and release it that same day. You could do social media. You could do graphics. You could do everything.
Right.
So when the visuals came along and the money started coming out of the process, that's when people started thinking, well, I can do all that myself, and I can be as big as the rest of these other artists. Meanwhile, they don't realize what it even takes to get to that point.
Right. I agree with you. Like, it takes a lot,
Yeah.
you know. So, like, now going back to how you've been doing events for X amount of years, how long within that process would you say, like, from when you started to where you're at now, like, when did you really start getting that, I guess, that formula of having a successful events? Because I'm sure there was a lot of trial and errors at the beginning.
Well, it depends on what you define as successful, I guess you could say.
Okay.
If you look at success from a dollar amount, or if you look at success from how
looking
many
at
people came out to the event or supported it.
For me, successful would be the organization of it. You understand? Like, the fact of, like, how the organization and having that smooth like transaction between from your staff to the creatives and stuff like that.
I mean, honestly, because I did a lot of events when I used to work for Arrow, like I used to do these things called the Partners in Profit conferences, and I would actually organize these big conferences for 60 to 80 different managers, and they would travel and setting them up. I already kind of had that skill set.
Okay.
So for me, the organizational side was there from day one. Like our very first event for the iStandard event was at a place called Remote Lounge, which is now the Bowery. Down in the Bowery.
Yeah.
So we had about 400 people in about 125 space venue. 2 floors, they were jam-packed. I had like Rockwilder. I had like Fat Man Scoop. I had Lenny S., who's DJ, Khaled's manager now. These guys were all in the house for day one.
Wow.
So we saw that. We were like, when you walked into our show and we're like, wow, this is dope. All these producers, that's the feeling we got from day one. We were like, wow, like this is a different thing.
Right, it was.
This is about producers. We did that 20 years ahead of the game. Only people that were really doing it at that point were dynamic producer, but they were more on the educational side and not the live side. We were kind of trying to do it
right.
all. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I just felt like we could only go up from there.
Right.
So communicating with, and then you got to deal with like, the marketing, the promotion, the actual awareness level, the reach out, the community. I think one of the most important things that we did from day one was building this community of creatives that has lasted the test of time, whether they've either gone on to do big things or they're still trying to get their ground. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what happened with iStandards? Because I know, again, you was going strong. Yeah. You guys were hitting different markets, and now from what I'm seeing, I know you have your other platforms, but not iStandards.
No, iStandard kind of translated into the new creative space.
Okay.
That I have.
Okay.
iStandard was it's just like any other relationship. After 15, 16 years, people start working in their own, way, and then sometimes you just either lose track of where you're trying to go, or there's just creative differences. You don't see an end goal or a goal in general.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of where we were. No animosity towards any of my partners or anybody in the past, but this creative space thing is now more like cut through the red tape.
Okay.
Like when we do these creative space song camps, these 3-day camps, I've got the most, the biggest new producer there. I've got the biggest manager. I've got the biggest A&R, the biggest publisher, and they're all like us in this room right now, communicating and having that, that sense of community where it's not like, okay, I got plaques on the wall and you just started out. How can we figure out a way for us to, work in the same space? You know what I'm saying? So for me, I always try to be an advocate for how to elevate from wherever you are. And it's always been about education, because I always felt when I went to these panels and seminars, and when I was listening to a lot of the people on the speaking panel,
right,
they were all miserable. They hated their jobs.
Right.
They would just be there like hungover. You know what I'm saying? Some of these A&Rs, got their job because they had a homie in the office.
Right.
And that's kind of where music is where it is now. You know what I'm saying? Just the lack of foundation of real music people have gotten us to this point. You know what I'm saying? So we can go on and talk about forever. But Creator Space is a new platform. We do song camps.
Okay.
We do a lot of educational things. We just started this R&B playlist. We're focusing more on the R&B genre because there's really nothing out there for R&B.
How you feel about that, with that whole concept of R&B being dead in a sense? It's not, because there's a lot of talent.
Yeah.
I tell this, we're both in the industry. We're both,
Right.
so we get to see a lot of talent.
Right.
But mainstream is stating R&B
The
is
reason
dead
why
in a
people
sense.
say R&B or hip hop is dead is because they're only listening to the radio.
Right.
And that's not where this stuff lives.
Right.
There's more artists now. There's more there's more competition now.
Okay.
So you got to search for it. You got to go on Spotify. You got to go on SoundCloud and just type in R&B. It's easier to find music than ever, but it takes a little bit more time for you to find something that might generate with yourself. You know what I'm saying?
So when you, going back to when you were stating how, where music is at nowadays, where it's almost pretty much the same in a sense. I definitely can agree, right? But again, it's I see other artists they can stand out. But I think one of my biggest complaints when it comes to working with a lot of underground or up and coming artists, again, is the sense of entitlement, where they feel like, I'm dope, I don't need to invest, marketing.
Learn.
Exactly. So it's what is it that we can do? I know what you're doing. You're providing a platform that you're showing a different side to that. But it's you can bring the what is that saying? The horse to the water, but
drink.
Right. So how you feel about that?
I'm gonna tell you straight up. I only deal with people that believe in themselves.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's why I do these events. My fee is a lot higher than a lot of other events. You know what I'm saying? Because I put a quality event together, and people have gone to my events and done amazing things. I think when people see that they have to invest, they have to get out and learn, they have to be in front of certain people and build these relationships face to face, as opposed to thinking they can just see a DM post or DM somebody, whatever the case may be. You got to get to the point where you feel confident enough in yourself to believe enough in yourself, like I did, and leave your job after however. And I'm not telling anybody to jump out the window, but set yourself up. If you want to do something, knowing you can do anything, you have to get out of your own way.
Absolutely.
And a lot of these artists, creatives, they're afraid of being successful because there might be failure. But you can't be successful without having failure. Right.
The fear of the unknown.
Nobody in the history of ever has been successful without failing at some point. You know what I'm saying? So I think when people see what I do and they see how genuine it is and how my rapport is with people, because I have the patience, I can stop a little bit and look at the bigger picture. I'm very big on organization and compartmentalization and how I plan my time, and I'm super organized. So when people see that I do all this stuff, and then they're like, but you still have room to grow, and you still take time to learn, and you still do these other things for people on the low or for free or whatever, I just look at it if you want to be successful, you really got to get out of your own way.
Absolutely. I agree with you. So then, because you have been an entrepreneur for a very long time, at what point you can say you stop personalizing the fact of I could help you, but you need to help yourself. At one point, yeah.
I think I've always had that mentality.
Okay.
But I think when people invest in themselves, I show them more love.
Okay.
So, for instance, if I see you come to my event in L.A., and then you come to one in New York, and then you came to one in Miami, next event I'm going to show you some love. But then I might invite you to a bigger session, or I might sign you to my sync library, or I might connect you with somebody when you go to a different city because you have something I know they need. People don't have that capacity.
Right.
That's a word that I think a lot of people don't use enough or understand, is the capacity. When people text me or DM me or email me, either it's Jay-Z or it's Joe Schmo, I'm responding just as fast.
Okay.
I don't have that, I'll get to it later or I'll get it when I get to it. I might be like that with listening to music nowadays. It's a lot. But when people hit me, everybody knows that's my one thing. I'm not that industry guy.
Okay.
I'm hitting you back in seconds.
Okay.
I don't like to have anything in my inbox. Nothing in my text,
Right.
nothing on my DMs. If you see everything I do is so color coordinated, and I have to be organized, or else I don't feel like I can do my job.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Because again, like you mentioned, like there are a lot of executives or a lot of people in the industry. They hate what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just doing it for whatever their purpose is. Whether it's the money, the relationships, whatever. But I can genuinely like feel and see that you're doing this because one, you want to educate, you want to help, and this is something that you actually enjoy doing. So I appreciate that. I know you have a book as well, with how I left my job and made it in the industry.
Yeah.
What made you decide to want to put a book out there?
When I say how I left my job and made it in the music industry, I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about being rich. I'm talking about not having to ever go back to work for anybody else.
Okay.
I've passed the threshold many years ago of being comfortable in the game. You know what I'm saying? Doing what I do because I love it every day. And there's been ups and downs. Whether
Right.
I've had 100,000 in the bank or negative couple thousand. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like, you go through it and you have to understand it's going to take those things. I came up with that idea because I wanted to affect more lives without actually having to be in the room.
Okay.
Nowadays, especially when it comes to, reach out and community, you have to provide other ways for people to absorb what you're trying to say. I could have did an audio book. I could have did, a mini series. I could have done whatever it was, but I wanted to do a physical book
Okay.
where people back in the day, you could write and you can highlight and you could, it has questions in there, interactions, points, all that. So when people read it, they can throw it on the desk in the studio. And somebody else could pick it up, or they could share it with somebody else. And I did that. I did that all myself.
It was self-published.
I was
and everything,
self-published,
yeah.
but I had at the time I was dating somebody who was really like a business, and she was very into her business, and she was like, "Listen, like you can write a book." Because I was like, "Why am I going to write a book? I don't feel like I'm there yet."
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about it, like, okay, all the publishing deals I've done, the people that I've put on my stage and have gotten big placements, the things I've done personally as far as moving around the country.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? Yeah, I think I could do this.
Okay.
So what I started doing is every time I got on a plane, because I felt like I was on a plane every single day,
Okay.
I would open up my Google document and just start writing whatever came to my brain.
Okay.
So I had an intro of like maybe 22 pages of an intro, and I'm like, this can't be the intro to my book. So what I did is I started sliding over paragraphs.
Okay.
That kind of had like their own little story. And then I just, I have like a couple of mantras that I live by, so I started like using those as the titles, like, no plan B, and, you got to go through it to get to it. And just little things that I've always said to myself or used, like, burn your boat, stuff like that. I mean, don't burn your boat. Burn your boat. It's a long story. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
But, I started like really compartmentalizing it all, and then I started building the story out. And then eventually it was only about 100 pages. I gave it to an editor. And she's like, you never wrote a book before? I was like, no. She's like, you did an amazing job.
Oh, wow.
So it was very small details. She was like, just elaborate more, get more emotional here.
Okay.
Because really, I left my job after my dad passed.
Okay.
So I had like this, if I'm going to do it, now's the time.
Right. Right.
I was 29 at the time, no kids, no debt. I was like, I just got to make this jump and do it now. You know what I'm saying? And never look back. Because when you say, and this is a good point for you out there listening to this, if you ever say, well, if this doesn't work out, I'll just do this,
right,
you've already lost.
Exactly.
You're basically shooting yourself in the foot.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to have a plan B, but you could have a plan A or a second plan A.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Which is what I did. I wanted to be an artist. That didn't work out. What did I continue to do? Just follow the path that I love.
Right.
And I became a creative executive that's now affected tens of thousands of people's lives.
How was that transition, right? Because it's funny, you and I have a lot in common. Because I used to rap too.
Okay.
So.
Had a feeling.
Yeah. So so it's like, for me, I know my struggle, the transition. It was a really hard decision for me. So I want to know, how was your transition from becoming this artist, to now becoming this creative executive, you know?
Well, going from artist to like completely dropping it was like my lowest point in my life, probably. You know what I mean? Just because you're putting all your heart and soul into something. And I was around legends. I was around people that, I met Eminem before he got signed. I did a show with him. I met people like Lord Finesse, people that I was like these are my legends that I love my whole life. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, I'm there. I'm this close. I just got to make good music and build and whatever. And all of a sudden, somebody just like fumbled the bag. It wasn't up to me, you know.
Okay.
So what I learned from that is that I'm never gonna allow my career, my life. I'm not gonna rely on anybody else for that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like I'm always gonna be in control of what I need to do.
Okay.
Right. And that's why I stay in control of even stuff that I do with partners, because I want them to learn how to also be that type of person where there's no cracks in the industry. I mean, no cracks in the foundation. Like we're all glue. We keep it together, and I try to be one, teach one, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
But for the most part, like the transition was crazy, because when I came back into work, from work back into the music thing, like I just dropped everything. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Okay.
Right. I had like a little stock option. I bought into my cousin's business. So I was getting some ancillary income while I was trying to build my brand. So a year and a half goes in. I'm going super hard with my artists. We're on 120 mixtapes, The Source, Double XL, Hip Hop DX, allhiphop.com, making mad ground. And unfortunately, he got caught up in something. Gotcha. So here I am, like, okay, now what?
What's next?
I'm not going backwards, right? And that's where that whole burn your boat thing comes into play. You burn your boat, you don't go backwards. You just keep going. You know what I'm saying? So I ended up just figuring out, like, what am I good at? Like, what skill sets do I have that I can provide this industry that will create a solution to whatever problems there might be out there?
Right.
And I've met all these artists on all these shows that I was doing with this guy, and I'm like, man, these guys are so talented, but there's like, the sound sucked. It was like, if they said so-and-so A&R was there, they weren't there.
Right.
So I have to be on my word. My word is my bond. I got to make sure the people are here. It's organized. The sound is great. And people started knowing me from doing those. You know what I'm saying? And then that's where people started getting signed. And the A&Rs were hitting me up like, yo, Hatch, who's the next, R&B group? Who's the next, boy band? Who's the next female rapper? Whatever the case may be. And it became a destination space. Every time I used to throw a show in the city, it was like everybody was there. You know what I'm saying?
As a human being, because you're on goal time, but you're a human being, so when you are in moments, because I'm sure this happened to you, where you feel stagnated, how do you I guess manage to remove yourself from that moment, that feeling, like that, just I guess that process?
I mean, it really just kind of depends on what it is and what part of the business it is.
Okay.
Like recently, this past week, I just came back. I did a camp in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I came back. I had like a bunch of family things to do, and I kind of had to step away from my business for about a week. And when I came back to it, even though I was on my emails and texts and everything else, I came back and I was like, for the first time in a very long time, I felt overwhelmed. I'm never overwhelmed. Okay. Never. But I came back and I was like, wait, there's just too much going on. What makes sense right now? Okay. So I ended up like, I was doing an educational system series that I decided to put on hold for now in New York. There was another event that I was going to do in Philly in July, and I was like, you know what, that doesn't make sense right now. I had to like really kind of hone in on what I call it urgency versus importance, right? Okay. Like I weigh everything on a scale of urgency versus importance, right? So if it's urgent, it's about the bottom line, it's about your business, about things that affect you today that could help you tomorrow, and then there's the important list. Okay. Right. Everything else that needs to be done. Right. So it's how I manage my day. It's how I manage my 3-month goals, my 6-month, my year, my 5-year, et cetera. And then that kind of gives me the sense. If it's not urgent right now, if I don't got to be worried about it right now, if it's something I still got to do, but I can do it a week or two from now, a month from now, then I got to take it off my plate. Gotcha. You know what I mean? And that could be. I mean, does it get not? Is it not that it's intimidating, but does it get? I can see the overwhelm. But I guess it's like, it's learning how to remove the ego, because I don't know if you have like moments where you be like, you know what, I can still do it. Or I can still, like not, like, so that, I guess how do you manage to speak to your ego and confront it at that given, like moments like that? That's a really good question. It's not so much about the ego. It's more about like my sense of challenge. Okay. Like I love a challenge. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it better than anybody. You know what I'm saying? So it's more about me kind of like taming my inner, you can do it all. Not necessarily ego where it's like, oh, no, I can do it. But it's like, bro, take a break. You're doing a lot of amazing things. Right. And luckily it's never affected the quality of something else, but I don't want it to affect the quality of me, my life, my health, whatever case may be. Right. So sometimes you just got to take a break. And a lot of artists, and I do a lot of consulting, one-on-ones. I do something called a mogul meeting, where people just ask me all the time, like, how do you do all this? Right. I have great teammates. Don't get me wrong. Okay. And I don't do it all myself. But there's times where you have to take the brunt of it and really kind of just sit down and go, okay, this is what's going to happen. This this is what everybody else is going to do, and we're going to make this happen together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But eventually you got to step out of that and just go, you know what? Right now I just need to focus on what's really urgent.
No, and I respect that. That I definitely respect that. I know when you was mentioning about like burning the boat, right?
Yeah.
I love that concept. I actually didn't, I didn't hear about it until now.
Yeah.
With you, I love it. Think it's smart. How you feel about as well with when it comes to nowadays. A lot of people don't mind burning bridges. However, most cannot swim. You understand? So I feel like relationship is currency in this industry.
100%.
You was mentioning so many names right now, hence who I was I'm asking all these questions because, like you're the process, the level ups, you have moments where you get stagnated and things like that. But also you're able to, your word is bond because of the relationships, So how important is it to have relationship within this industry?
It's the most important thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think also, too, there's another word people don't use when it comes to relationships. It's called positioning.
Okay.
Like positioning yourself within relationships, right? Like me and my relationships are not just about music.
Okay.
Right? Like I can, I was just on the phone with Fuse from 808 Mafia earlier today. Actually texting with him. We're doing a camp sometime in August. He came up to my camp in July and found like 12 producers he wanted to work with.
Okay.
So, like this is my guy. Like, when he found out I was diagnosed, he hit me up, showed love, you know what I'm saying? Like there's just, we have more than just, hey, I need you to speak on a panel, or hey, I just need you to, whatever the case may be. This is like real life stuff. So for me, I think when you position yourself in a relationship to make it benefit everybody involved, not just you or me. Because I'm sure when people used to come up to you when you were doing shows, or even now, it's like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm doing such and such, I know so-and-so,
right.
He thinks I'm this and that. You know what I'm saying? It's really about that person. So what can I do to create leverage or value in this relationship, right? Like I'm over here looking around the space. I'm like, wow, I know like 10 people that would love to do photo shoots and video shoots. I'm thinking about how to put money in your pocket.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know that'll strengthen our relationship. So when you think about yourself a lot of times and you're thinking about how the relationship is going to benefit just you, you're not positioning yourself properly. So it should always be about us. It should be about how we can figure it out. There's relationships that I've had that I've never really asked for anything. It's just I like them. They're cool people. We have a great vibe. Maybe go to a Yankee game, grab a drink, whatever the case may be,
right.
Go to a barbecue, whatever. And it's just about like, cool, we just have a relationship because we're just good people. Not every relationship also has to lead to an end result. That's what people think too. And also people think that because you got an email address, a DM, or a phone number, and you're texting with people, that's the relationship.
Right.
That's not a relationship.
So how do you determine what's a relationship?
I think a relationship, again, is just how can you both help each other benefit.
Now, I want to know as well, what's a misconception you feel people have when it comes to the music industry?
Oh, man.
I know there's so many.
We can go on for hours. I think the biggest misconception, at least from the creative perspective, is that sometimes people think what's popular is what's wanted.
Okay.
And this goes this goes kind of back to this whole conversation about why the music industry is what it is. Like when producers or writers see the same 10 records on the radio, their automatic thought is, I got to make records like that.
Right.
That's what they want, right? But those records are made 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So now we got to think about 2 or 3 years from now, right? And when you don't have the access to the artists, you can't get up in those offices or build those relationships, or can't get into these studios to really find out what these people really want. You're taking educated guesses. But the problem is what are you using as like information? We're using social media, right? So you're on social media looking at like what Rihanna's doing, or what Drake is doing, or what Kendrick's doing, and you're like, oh, maybe I can do this and make a song about that. That's not the approach. The approach should be like, how could I physically build relationships with anybody in this circle?
Okay.
Right? And I do this thing called Exhaust the Office. And I find out everything about everybody around that person.
Okay.
Right? So I'm not gonna send music to Travis Scott.
Right.
He's never gonna see the DM. Ever. Even if he wanted to. Even if he was staring at his phone while I was DMing him, he wouldn't see it. He's got 80 million followers. So DMs are just going in like clockwork. You know what I'm saying? But I might know his manager. I might be able to find out who his engineer is. Who's his producer? Who's his best friend? Who rolls his blunts? You know what I'm saying? Who's his babysitter? Because these people are going to want to be They're like living vicariously through the opportunity that they may have for this person. So if I'm bringing you an amazing record, yo, Trav, somebody sent this, via DM. I love this record. You should check it out. There's a substantial better chance of him listening than you sending directly to him.
Right.
And I do the same thing with offices too. When I go to sessions, or go to meetings, or I go to A&R publishers, I get to know everybody in the office.
Okay.
Because that intern, that administrative executive, those people might come out to the event and they might find a talent, or they might. But it's also about just being cool to everybody. I'm just I don't like to toot my own horn. I'm just a good dude. You know what I'm saying? I want people to see me as a good person, and I like the energy when I'm around good people. So if I treat you the way I want to be treated, then it's on you.
I fuck with you. Yeah, I definitely, I do. And, I love the fact that, like you said it, like you do your research.
100%.
And hence why, for me, like you said, like success has so many different definitions. But for me, I'm like, I can see why you're constantly elevating.
Right.
And it's not to, like, big you up to the place of, like, I'm kissing your ass. It's just in the place of, like, I honestly appreciate what you're doing, because again, it's like I look up to like people like yourself. It's like, yo, I do want to ask you this, because again, you work with artists, and I'm seeing this a lot again, and this is an old topic, but the whole factor of, like, people mentioning, like, to stop rapping after you reach, like, 30 and on. Like, if you're still rapping at 30 and you're still maintaining a 9 to 5 or a regular job, stop rapping. How you feel about that?
Fuck that.
Fuck it.
I don't like, the age has nothing to do with anything. You know what I'm saying? Quincy Jones did Thriller at 53 years old.
Right.
His best piece of work. And he don't even make music. He just gets people in the room and knows how to, get the right people to make the right music. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I feel like there's a point where you have to be real with yourself on certain levels. But if you're doing all the right things, if you're learning, if you have a talent, if you have a hard work ethic, and you know that you could perform on some level, right? Because this also goes back to the definition of success.
Right.
It really is the definition of happiness. So if I'm happy with going and performing a couple nights a week, maybe I'm not making a whole lot of money, but I'm like, I love being on stage. I love being around people. And there's a fan base that comes out and follows me and goes to these few different places. Yeah, I'm not going to be Jay-Z, but maybe I'll be Talib Kweli. But Talib might make just as much as Jay-Z on the music side, because they own their own masters, and they, you know what I'm saying, they're getting that money directly to them. They can do new distribution situations that you couldn't do back then, or can't do like major labels used to do. So it's really just about perception as reality. Like, if you go out there and enjoy yourself, just have fun, man. So look at 2 Chainz. Look at Benny the Butcher. He's not a young cat.
Right.
But they're new in the game. You know what I'm saying?
This is how I feel about when it comes to that topic. I feel like it's okay to have fun, like you said, have fun, but understand where you're at within your career in a sense, right? I feel like this, like, if you're not making, because what about those that are not making any sort of income, and they've been rapping for over 3 years? Right. I feel like if you're not making an income from what you're saying this is your career, at this point, this is a hobby. Right. So I feel like you just understand, I and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I've told many artists, you need to sit down and really look at what is it that you want, and what is it that you're willing to do to get to that level of success, that whatever defines your success. Right. So for me, I was like, yo, keep going. You can definitely, especially now, like you mentioned all these names, and it's true. Yeah. Jay-Z made it late too, Eminem, etc. So it definitely, there is possibilities, but understand the groundwork that you need to do, the investments, and again, treat this like this is your job. Yeah.
It's 2 different outlooks, right? Because you're right. You know what I'm saying? Like, eventually, if you're not putting in the time, the effort, the workload, the learning, to get there, that's one thing. But if you're doing all that, and you're talented, and you still haven't made it, it's like that meme. I don't know if you ever seen that meme where it's like one person's digging and they're like, they just found a diamond. And the person next to them, looks over, and then when they get out the hole, they start jumping in that hole and start digging the diamond. Meanwhile, they were this close to finding their home.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you're learning, if you're taking the time out, if you're, because hard work beats talent 10 times.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It does. And I have this here, and it says how it does, but hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, though. But that's, and again, it goes back to, like, hand in hand, like what we're, like we've been speaking on, as far as, like, I guess, like, the whole era, how the process of everything's changing, the visuals of, like, with why I feel the entitlements at times, because again, it's like, I think having the talent is a plus. again, we're in the industry where it's overly saturated.
Right.
So you have to put in that work. It's not 100%. You have to go in 1,000%. Like you mentioned, you left your job, and for you, it was not like, this is not my plan B.
Right.
This is my. I tell everybody this. This is my alphabet, bro. Like I don't have nothing else to do. Like like this is my A B C. Like etc. So, like it again. That's why I wanted to make sure, because I'm like, yo, like, I'm sure you see this, and it's sad that like sometimes you meet certain people who have that talent.
Right.
And their mindset is not
I'll
there
say
in a
this,
sense.
I'll say this. There's really no wrong answer to that.
Okay.
I think it just depends on what angle you're looking at it from.
Okay.
Right. There's really no wrong answer to that.
Okay.
I think it just depends on what angle you're looking at it from.
Okay.
Right. But I'll say this. Only thing we can control is being prepared.
Right.
Right. There's opportunities out there we all know because other people are getting them. The one thing that we can't control is the timing of it.
Mm-hmm,
right.
Mm-hmm.
But when you finally start to align and you're prepared and the opportunity's there and it's the right time, you got to be ready.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So getting ready sometimes might take 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 years. Like the overnight success is 20 years.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if I would have told Rick Ross, 10 years ago, before 15 years ago, before he really started to pop, like, bro, like you're 30 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I see you in the studio every night, but you're not really getting any ground.
Right.
And he wouldn't have met Khaled or Cool and Dre or any of the other guys. Like, that's the one thing about it, because sometimes you just don't know when the opportunity is going to happen. And I don't know if you know Fat Gary. He used to manage DJ Premier.
Okay.
And earlier you asked me a question about when did you know, like, this is what you wanted to do and this was going to be your career. Not that I knew this is what I wanted to do, but it changed my mindset a little bit.
Okay.
He asked me, he's like, so, how's things going? I met him at a studio, at DITC studio. He's like, how's things going, man? How you feeling with what's going on? Like, your business, everything cool? And I'm like, yeah, I'm cool, but I just don't feel like I'm really where I'm supposed to be right now.
Mm.
So he literally, like, grabbed me and put me against, like, I felt like I was 3 feet off the wall. And he was like, don't ever say that.
Mm.
He's like, you're never going to be where you want to be.
Okay.
But you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
Okay.
So that's what made me realize, and that's even like that happened right around the time I was writing the book, and I actually changed a part of the book to add that.
Okay.
Because I started to realize, like, what? Like, we all have a ladder to climb, right?
Right.
Like, there's maybe 20 rings, whatever, how many rungs on a ladder they call them. If you don't touch every rung on a ladder, what happens when you start to like lose your footing when you do get to the top? You don't know where to step.
Right. Right.
Everybody wants to go right to the top, right? So when you go right to the top, you don't have the right foundation, management, team, attorney, label, budget, whatever case may be, you end up falling apart.
You're right.
That's why so many one-hit wonders are, or people that maybe had a hot song in their city don't last very long because it can't resonate with the rest of the world.
I agree.
But at the same time, you got to understand there's small successes along the way too. And these are things that should fuel you to get better or want to get better. So if I'm taking my time trying to find my thing out, I'm busting my ass. Mm-hmm. As long as I'm finding small successes that allow me to believe, like, you know what, keep doing your thing, man. You can get there. Just keep doing your thing. Let me get to here first. And when I get to here, let me just be one day better than I was for that.
That's dope.
You know what I'm saying? So again, it's just angles of how you look at it, but there's really no wrong answer to that.
Gotcha. No, I appreciate that, definitely. So, lastly, I want to know, when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Wow. Well, that's the last time I did something for the first time. Oh, man. Want me to start rapping now? No, I'm just kidding. That's a really good question. I ziplined a couple years back. I'm not afraid of heights because I fly a lot. I'm in big buildings all the time. But if I'm like a bridge or if I'm like in a skimpy place and I'm up high like a Ferris wheel or something, not that I have anxiety. I'm not a fan of being there. I hate roller coasters. But I was in Atlanta and we went over a little family vacation and there was these zip lines.
Okay.
And it was raining like torrential downpour.
Wow.
And I'm the last person. Everybody's going down a zip. And it was the first one. And I'm like, why would they put the first one, this long, like 4,000, foot zip line, right? So I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Let's just do it. You know what I'm saying? And I hopped on it. I did it. I felt great about it.
Okay.
I was like, let's do it again.
Right.
And then the next day we went whitewater rafting.
Oh, wow.
Which was also something for the first time.
Nice.
So I think a lot of times whenever I'm doing something for the first time, it's either because, I realized that there's an importance of just getting past that point in life. It just doesn't necessarily have to be like an event, like a specific thing.
Right.
But it could be a mindset. It could be taking the time out to do something, or meeting with somebody that maybe I wouldn't have met with because I didn't think there was an opportunity, or I didn't think there was any value in the relationship.
Okay.
But like sometimes just get to a point where you're like, you know what? You never know. Because I'm trying to find, I'm trying to turn over every rock like everybody else and figure out what's what. Just how deep in the ground are you looking to turn these rocks over?
Right,
and if
right.
you go a little further, maybe you'll find something that nobody else would have found. So I think sometimes just about what I said earlier, just like kind of getting out of your own way and realizing you can do whatever you want as long as you put your mind to it.
That's dope. Definitely never done that whitewater rafting.
That's fun.
I've always wanted to try
strong
that.
knees for that
I bet. Yeah, that's super dope though. I love everything that we spoke about. Thank you very much for your time, your energy. You're a busy person, so everything you're doing is super dope, productive, and inspiring. A lot of people I know spoke very highly of you. So continue opening doors for others, and for those that are watching, where can they find you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you find me on social media. Everything's mogul status, MOGUL status. Go to our website, Creative Space Events, as well. You see all of our song camps, everything else we have going on. And then the newly launched R&Bplaylist.com will be June 13th. We're launching that.
Okay.
We might launch it tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. I got to finish posting some things. But, yeah, I'm like I said, I'm really accessible. I don't like to be, don't OD.
Right.
Send me 40 records the first time you reach out. Introduce yourself. That's another gem. When you get out there and you're trying to meet people, keep it short and sweet.
Right.
When you do your research about people, if you know something about me, or you know somebody that knows me, or you've been to one of my events maybe a long time ago, mention those things, because you don't know how that may sway the conversation.
Right.
Hey, I spoke to so-and-so and they said great things about your events. I'm just reaching out.
Right.
But I get back to everybody, so hit me up.
Dope. Y'all already know the vibes, man. Listen. There's no reason why you shouldn't be following the man. All his information will be in the description box below. All you got to do is tap in, like he said. Just don't overflow, the DMs, be nice and a proper intro.
Talk to me nice.
Right. And y'all already know, man. It's your girl V-Henny, the Artistry. Rock out with your cocks out, jam out with your clamor.